Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to another episode in the series Dawah Ilallah as we look at comparative sciences in helping us to be more effective in our dawah, especially when we're calling people to submit to the one true God, to submit to Allah. And we've been looking at many of the doctrines that the church holds to be true that are actually based on a person's opinion or based on something that happened many years before we actually find the text coming along. Sometimes we find the doctrine in existence before the text was even written, before the Bible was even written. And so we find that these things, it's almost like we put the cart before the horse. And so almost every doctrine within Christianity, bar none, is a creation of a man who came before looking for an actual text in the Bible to substantiate it. That is very dangerous to do. And that's why you will go into error. Today we have a number of churches in the world who believe that entertainment of the masses is more important than the content and training of the masses. So what does that mean? It's more of a party time when you go to church than a time for you to learn what is right and what is wrong. The church has become a playground. It has become the entertainment place. And there is a very important question that I have for Christians in the world today. Where did you get this doctrine from? Who said that you should be entertaining and trying to make people feel comfortable and happy than rather giving the truth? I call it tickling the ears of the parishioners, of the members. This is what the modern church is doing. This is what the church is doing worldwide. They are basically entertaining people, making them feel comfortable in coming to church, instead of challenging them and making them think, why do you believe what you believe? Where do you come up with these ideas from that you're telling people? And so it's become about entertainment in the modern church today more than about the content. Most modern churches today are more concerned and involved with entertaining the masses than actually giving some decent teaching. If you had to remove the staging, the lights, the camera, the action in the churches, you had to remove the fancy sound system, the big screen TVs, I wonder how many people would still come to that church. If the church was maybe in an open warehouse somewhere, a rented warehouse, maybe not so great floors, plastic chairs, and you brought out the plastic chairs that are uncomfortable and you sat there, and the pastor or the priest stood up and he gave you a 3-hour sermon, how many people do you think would remain? They already moan at the priest and say, hey, pastor, 15 minutes, way too long. We need at least 3 hours for praise and worship. Have you noticed some of these Pentecostal charismatic churches? The sermon is 15 minutes, if that, maybe 5 minutes, most of them. And that 15 minutes, if it is 15 minutes, 10 minutes is taken up how much money you need to give. And 5 minutes is taken up on self-glory. Today I did this, we did that, I am this, I am that. And so the message is nowhere. And then the praise and worship session takes place. You know the praise and worship where the guitars get up, entertainment, guys with these long fringes that hang in front of them, emo kids, to entertain. And that goes on and 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 on. I try to watch God TV because that's where I get my theology, where I get my ideas from. I look at them and I go, wow, you just wrote the whole talk for me. And so I watch God TV. But sometimes I just can't. I just wish I could fast forward because there is so much nonsense that they do. I mean, they have a famous, supposedly, to them it's famous, a lecturer coming. And she or he, normally it's a she. So you have the right person, it's sales tactics. She stands there, she talks for 5 minutes. I'm telling you the truth. She stands there for 5 minutes and she does her sermon. She's been invited all the way to this country to come and do a talk. And then she gets some people coming up there, testifying, telling their story, whatever it is. And then she sits down and have a praise and worship for the next 2 hours. I don't know how much they paid that woman to come there. But if they paid her to come there and talk for 5 minutes, they paid her too much. And this is the general consensus today. You put a man in front of the mic, and I told you a couple of weeks ago about there's one man on God TV. One person. I'm telling you that man's going to become a Muslim. Every time he talks, I see him coming closer and closer to Islam. And his talks go on for a long time. They're not 5-minute specials. And this man is starting to realize, don't drink alcohol, don't eat pork. We need to pray more than we are praying. He talks about Muslims and he says to them we should be looking at how Muslims are behaving. We should try to mimic their behavior. This man is coming closer. That's how I used to talk when I started getting closer and closer to Islam. So there's one good guy. Maybe I'm spoiling it for him. Maybe they'll get rid of him now from God TV. Maybe that's what he needs. That's what happened to me. As soon as they realized that, they kicked me out. They said, no, take a year off. That was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because that's when I really started to question what I believe. So we see generally it's all about entertainment. It's about party time. Where did this come from? Do we find that this was the teaching of the Jews? Do we find that this is the teaching of the early Christians? Was this even the teachings of the first corrupter of the New Testament, Paul? Did he come and teach it? No. These guys were firm. These guys were strict. There was no time for entertainment and playing around. They were firm in what they believed. And today we find that the church today is about entertaining. It's about the gimmicks. It's about the gadgets. It's about the toys. We don't do that. We don't use gimmicks. We might have an object lesson, but we don't use gimmicks. And you'll find that if we had to take the challenge to the church and say to them, get rid of all that stuff, have a guy speak for 3 hours and sit on plastic chairs and a mic system that comes on and off, that church would be empty. They'd all move over to the other guy that's got air-conditioned rooms, who's got the PowerPoint presentation, who has the nice band playing in the front there. I remember in the town that I grew up in Dundee, in northern Natal in South Africa, we had the smallest church when I was a youngster, the priest that we had, because he had nothing there. Literally had nothing. His name was Pastor Bull. So that was enough to keep everybody aware. And this guy was one of those old Texan-style priests. You know, no gimmicks, long sermons. And I promise you there were like 10 people in the church. That was it. Everybody was at the other churches where they had all the fancy stuff. We were only 10 people in our church. Literally, we had the smallest church in the whole town. Nobody went there. It was called the Bible Baptist Church because they taught the Bible and they were Baptists and there was nobody there because they had no entertainment. They all went to the other church. There was a church called Faith Outreach. Everybody went there because they had musicians and dancing around. We had nothing. We just had the pastor and his kids and his wife and me. That was about it. There was this immediate family, him and me. Not even my parents came there. They found it too boring to go there. They went to Faith Outreach. The world wants entertainment, especially Christians. And the church, you want to test it, we have to look at what it was like in the days when it first started. There was no entertainment. It was based on proper teaching. But nobody wants proper teaching. They want to have their ears tickled, someone play with their hair, tickle their back so they can fall asleep. Just like happens when you watch TV, except for Peace TV, of course, it never happens with Peace TV. When other TV comes on, what happens? Your mouth falls open, and you sit there watching, and what happens to your head? It goes, and your head falls to the side, your mouth falls open, and you're like a zombie. So entertaining. Have you watched people when they watch TV? I love it. I like to turn my chair and watch people when they're watching TV so they don't notice. I can laugh my head off. You see all the expressions. They do all the expressions of the actors. And this is what happens in the church. We just want to be brain dead and entertained. Nobody wants to learn. The mosque is about serious stuff. It's about connecting to your Creator. People don't want serious. My brother, he's the funniest person in the world. He's a good Muslim. But sometimes he does strange things. And he doesn't mind me talking because he's the object lesson that I'm allowed to talk about with his permission. So sometimes he'll say to me, please, Areeb, get out of the religious mode. Just be normal for once. And I have to say to him, but this is my normal. This is who I am. Even my wife says, but you're not like on Peace TV. And I said, but Peace TV, I have to be more dynamic. I'm not always energy. Sometimes I'm quiet, but I'm always in the same mode. There's no like on and off switch. That now I'm in Muslim mode and now I'm not in Muslim mode. There's no like on and off switch. You're always the same. And I'm always going to use the opportunity to correct or preach or teach, to myself even. This is what we need. Every day we should correct ourselves or be corrected by someone. We should never be offended. We should never be upset when somebody corrects us. We should be grateful, we should thank them and say thank you for correcting me. But use wisdom. There's a right and a wrong way of saying things. My brother and myself are like water and oil. We get on very well together and make very good salad dressing, but they're not the greatest when it comes to looking at certain topics. I'll explain to you why after we get back from this break.